It is Wednesday. It is another edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here live on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Marc Pruitt in the house, Winston-Salem Journal beat writer. We're going to start off with Wednesday Night Lights like we usually do during the football season. Week 1 is in the books. Marc will talk about what he saw on Friday. I'll talk about what I saw on Friday, and we'll get you ready with Marc's Big 3, which we do every Wednesday, his 3 biggest matchups to watch out for in the Triad this upcoming Friday. Right behind him, BoxtoRow host and voice of the North Carolina A&T Aggies, Donal Ware, will be in the house. BoxtoRow celebrating 2 decades of covering HBCU athletics here in the state of North Carolina and beyond. We'll talk to him about that, and we'll talk to him about North Carolina A&T getting their season started here on Tobacco Road this Saturday. You can hear Donal Ware and Al Swan and Billy Covington on the call. A&T taking on Tennessee State Saturday. 4 o'clock pregame show, 4:30 kickoff. You can hear that on tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. You can hear it on terrestrial radio throughout the Triad, and you can hear it on Sirius XM. They may have a channel for us to announce when we get to Donald here in just a bit. But it's a loaded Wednesday. Let's get into it. It's the Desmond Johnson Show.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city needs that. I've been number 1, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you want and get your weed whacked. I'm going harder than a martyr on the starter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's 4th and inches. I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And welcome into the Desmond Johnson Show here on a beautiful Wednesday here across the Triad. Marc Pruitt joining me here from the Winston-Salem Journal. And just getting right into it, an eventful Friday night across the state, opening up week 1 of the high school football season. I believe you told me you're at Reagan Mount Tabor, if I'm not mistaken. Was that correct?
I was.
What was your initial thoughts out there in Pofftown?
It was fun to watch the 2 former CPC guys go at it first week of the season. There was a few of those matchups last week. Kind of knew what to expect with Reagan's team this year. Jacob Smith coming back from a torn ACL. Solid running game with John Evans Jr., who was, I think, 2nd in the CPC last year in rushing yards as a freshman. Reagan has a big offensive line to run behind, and some guys on defense that can get it done. Mount Tabor is a younger team, lost 4 D1 guys from last season's team. And it looked like things might get ugly early. Reagan scored there in the first 2 possessions. It was 14-0 with about 7 minutes left to go in the second quarter. And I thought, okay, we might be in for a running clock. But Mount Tabor buckled down from there. The defense made some adjustments. Coach Tyshawn Brown told me he was moving some of his offensive linemen onto the defensive line, and that kind of helped stop the bleeding for them. But just Tabor made a lot of young mistakes. It looked like a lot of pre-snap penalties, offsides, a lot. Led to a lot of Reagan first downs in that first half and kept them sustaining drives and eating that clock up. So 14-0 win for the Raiders. John Evans Jr. was the workhorse. The running back went for 260 yards on 30 carries and scored both of the touchdowns. And Reagan got it done, and it was a good win for them going into this week's game, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But
yeah, I did East Forsyth versus Glenn, the WTOB game of the week with Rod Funderburk, the Kernersville Cup home opener for the Nest, and East won 31-0, shutting out Glenn. My takeaways from that, East is not going to be the same East Forsyth they were the past 4 years or so. The Jalen Rayner, Quayshawn Brown group, and then the Bryce Baker group the past 2 years. They're not built like that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think the East Forsyth fans have gotten used to 55-0 blowouts, running clock third quarter, that kind of thing. That's not the kind of game they were in on Friday. It was kind of sloppy, to be honest, both sides, which you kind of expect week 1 of the high school football season. The East Forsyth squad, they are deep in multiple positions, including running back and wide receiver, which I did not know until we started really calling the game and seeing who they pulled up from JV, who's transferred in. They've got some players. It's East Forsyth. They always got players, but these players seem to be more tight knit. We did the nest last night at J Peppers. A lot of them have told us, they played Pop Warner together. They've been playing with each other since they were 8, 9 years old. Like the group, Jair Richburg, Cannon Rottweiler, JB Shabazz, like all these top kids that they play with each other for going on 8 years or whatever. So they have this weird confidence about them because the squad that they played with in Pop Warner made it all the way to Florida to like the Nationals or whatever out of North Carolina. So they were really good. And they know it. Like they know that if they play together, they'll be fine. So there's not really the top star kind of guy. They've been top heavy the past 4 years. I don't really see that, although they do have start Jair Richburg and others. It feels like it's gonna be more about committee this year. And then I will say for Glenn is going to surprise people in their conference. I know they're in that conference with Tabor and Oak Grove, but Glenn's gonna be more competitive than I thought they were going to be. They have some playmakers. Joel Hayes, the quarterback's pretty good. They had a couple kids on defense that stood out. They've got enough. Their issue is going to be numbers and depth. In the third quarter of that game, Glenn started to cramp up literally every other play. It was like 12 different kids that cramped up in the third quarter. And you look over across the field, and there's like maybe 35, 40 kids. And East has got like 75 sitting on theirs. And it felt like some of the Glenn kids were playing both ways, and that kind of started the cramping. But they were playing them tight. I saw
a lot of that Friday night. Tabor too, especially the Tabor kids. I was kind of surprised because it wasn't that hot.
It really wasn't. Yeah, we were talking about that on the radio. It wasn't really hot. It was actually a perfect night for football. But I
think it was just, especially with the Tabor crew playing both ways. I think it just got to them there.
Yeah,
not used to being game form, game ready. Playing both ways like that. And I think it's supposed to be in the 70s Friday night this week. So
it's supposed to be like this all week long. So fake fall is here in the Carolinas just in time for high school football.
I had the same feelings on Glenn as you. I spent some time with them a couple of different times over the summer. Brady Robinson, the quarterback, was the second leading passer in the league last year behind Bryce Baker, and Joel Hayes has put on about 20 pounds of muscle. That's the first thing I noticed about him when he came in to talk to me.
Yeah.
Dang, dude, you've gotten bigger since.
He's going to be their bell cow, I believe. The guy they're going to lean on. He was the running back pretty much the entire night. He got the majority of the carries. He ran some wildcat. He stood out to me for sure.
They got a great linebacker in Isaiah Buford, who has been on my all-area team the last 2 seasons, and I imagine he'll be on there again this year. So they got some people, and going to that league, I think that's going to give them a chance to compete up there with Oak Grove.
I do think Oak Grove's going to win that conference, but I think Mount Tabor and Glenn are going to be right there with them. So that'll be a fun one to watch there. We got, again, week 2. It doesn't stop with the reclassifications of everything to 8 classes. It's made for some very interesting non-conference matchups here in the first couple of weeks of the season. The Grimsley Whirlies, who escaped West Charlotte. I shouldn't even say escaped. West Charlotte had to play Grimsley on Friday night instead of the other way around, the way 704 was trying to make it sound. Grimsley wins 28-27 in overtime in a thriller. Faison Brandon has still only lost 2 games his entire starting career. And Grimsley's getting to a point where I talked to Coach Brown at their coach's show on Monday at Natty Greens, and I told him, I was like, it almost feels like your guys have gone through so many big games the past 2+ years that now they come to these games expecting to win as opposed to hoping to win. That's a huge difference for a group. It felt like Grimsley knew they were going to win that game as soon as they got on the field. It felt like West Charlotte was trying to see if they measured up to Grimsley, and that's kind of how it's been. Grimsley's the best team in the state. I honestly feel that they are the best team in the state. They are loaded again, offense and defense. They have the best quarterback in the state. They've got 2 D1 wide receivers. They've got Andrew Rogers on the defensive side, picking up where Bryce Davis graduated and left off. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for anybody to topple Grimsley, but let's get into it real quick. Your top 3 games in the Triad this week. I imagine we might hear some of these names we just called out.
Yeah, let's start there with Grimsley. Grimsley coming to Clemens to play West Forsyth Friday night.
That's going to be. Slobber knocker. Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun one to watch. West had a big win last week, 42-8 over Davie. Started that one out with a bang when Jalen Moore, kind of highly touted wide receiver they've got. He's got some D1 offers already. Junior took the opening kickoff back, I think 96 yards for a touchdown. And really, West just had their way offensively, pushing them around, used the running game to their advantage. Transfer running back Moses Morris went for over 100 and scored 3 touchdowns on 9 carries. So they didn't really have to get into it with the passing game, but it was a running clock early in the third quarter in that game. Davey's kind of young, not in the CPC anymore, and have it as a new coach this year. So they're still trying to feel everything out, figure it all out. He's a great coach. Brian Henson won a state championship in Salisbury, and I know he'll get that thing turned around there. But West looked good from all accounts that I've been told. I have some inside intel with my daughter being a cheerleader there. But a couple other people, and I talked to Coach Wallace and the staff Sunday about the game and previewing this week against Grimsley and how they're kind of getting ready for that. Wallace has some history against Grimsley when he was at Northwest Guilford. He couldn't remember if he ever beat Grimsley or not when he was there, but I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it might surprise people that it might be a little closer than some that would expect. And I think West has a shot. Their defense, their offensive line, you put it right up there against anybody in the state. I think with PJ, with AJ McLeod, with Keith Foster, Canary Scholars, those guys are all real experienced. They're big guys, as we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And they're gonna run Moses. They're gonna run Darrell Page. They're gonna have a lot of sets in for Darrell where he can get out in the flat, and then they've got speed on the outside too. So we'll see what goes on. I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm going to be seeing Grimsley 2 weeks in a row. Going to see them this week against West. And then I'll be going to Greensboro next week to watch them play East is the plan right now. So
that's that's the big one. And we'll see if both those teams can go into this undefeated after this week. 2 tough matchups for Grimsley and for East Forsyth, actually. I do agree. I do think that West presents issues for Grimsley. In terms of their run game, their offensive line is just as big as Grimsley's. Probably the best offensive line, to be honest, in the Triad in terms of overall pound for pound. And the West is going to lean on that run game. When Coach Wallace has a quarterback that can throw and run, they're super dangerous regardless of where he is. That's going to be a fun game to watch. And that's actually going to be the WCOG game of the week. This week, Chase Williams will be a solo calling that game in out in Clemens as West Forsyth hosts Grimsley. What's your game number 2?
Let's stick with East Forsyth Eagles. Good one against Northern Guilford. East coming off the big win against Glenn. Northern's coming off probably an even bigger win against Reedsville last week. They were down 10 or 11 going into the fourth quarter and managed to come from behind and win that one. I think that probably opened a lot of eyes to Northern Guilford. Reedsville being one of the top contenders in the whatever class they're in this year. I can't remember. It's 5A or 3A, 4A, 5A, whatever it is. Kendra Harrison, Deontay Neal, 2 of the best athletes this state has seen in quite some time. Northern Guilford got it done. They got a lot of experience back on that team this year for Coach Eric Westberg. He's a good friend of Wallace's, by the way, Kevin Wallace at West. And I think this is going to be a fun matchup for both teams. See maybe more of a true challenge for East Forsyth this week against a Northern Guilford team that I believe was undefeated last year going into the last regular season game against Grimsley in the Metro Conference. And then I think they won a game or 2 in the playoffs too. So
yeah, they were, if I'm not mistaken, that last matchup or next to last matchup was Grimsley Northern Guilford. Yeah, it might have been the last matchup. They were both undefeated going into it, which actually helped Grimsley's RPI and got them the 1 seed by playing that game at the very end. And then Northern Guilford did rattle off a couple wins in the playoffs before they lost. Yeah, that's a game that is a very interesting one. I don't think East Forsyth has ever been to Northern Guilford to play. They scrimmage them all the time in the preseason. Talking to Coach Willard last night regarding that. it appears that they are going to be there for the first time, and they are looking forward to going out to Summerfield to play this game. Again, like I mentioned before with East Forsyth, it's not really you got to stop this guy or that guy or whoever. They've got guys all over the place, so it'll be interesting to see if Northern Guilford can match up with the sheer numbers that East has, that they kind of throw at you in waves at their skill position players. Who's the third game you got this week, Mark?
I'm looking at Reagan going to Oak Grove. I think that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah.
I know Coach Creason at Oak Grove and Josh McGee at Reagan, good friends. They've scrimmaged against each other the last couple of seasons. Fun that we get to see this one happen too, I think, because I think you said it before, Oak Grove and Mount Tabor, I think, were probably the cream of the crop in the new Piedmont Triad, 6A, 7A. I think Glenn might have something to say about that.
Yeah.
But being out at Oak Grove a couple weeks ago, talking with them, those are some big dudes. They got some big guys on offense, big guys on defense, on the defensive line. They got a great linebacker in Bradley Bird, returning quarterback, and they had a running back, Jiden Barnes, who had a great game against Ledford. Oak Grove's coming off a shutout win against Ledford last Friday night, and obviously Reagan's coming off the shutout win against Mount Tabor. So I like that game, how that looks on paper, how that's going to play out. It's going to be a good test for Oak Grove, I think, playing against one of the big boys, 7A school in Reagan, and it just lends itself to all the fun storylines on can Reagan keep up the momentum from last week, and is this a chance for Oak Grove to shine against a bigger school? Because the knock on them in years past, even though they had a lot of success, won several conference championships with Mark Holcomb before, and then now Coach Creason has come in and won the last two conference championships in the mid-state conference that is no longer there. But the knock on Oak Grove is they just don't get to play anybody that's any good until they hit the second or third round of the playoffs. So yeah. This will be that, I think, that benchmark for them to kind of see where they are this season with their team, and getting a chance to do it now is even better. That'll get them ready for the new conference and getting to go up against a team like Reagan. So that'll be cool.
So you got Reagan, Oak Grove, East Forsyth at Northern Guilford, West Forsyth hosting Grimsley. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Pretty good slate there.
This is the fun part of now. The schedule now is we get to see these games where in years past we didn't get to see matchups like these.
Yeah, exactly. Because some of these you won't, like in the playoffs, because the classifications now being changed. You wouldn't have seen East Forsyth, Northern Guilford run across each other in the playoffs or anything. So this is fun. This is fun. I'm excited. And I was telling Rod, I was like, I'm more excited to see a team like East Forsyth and actually Grimsley too, in this instance, where both of those teams, they get to conference play and they just kind of motor through their conference, and you get to this point where they're just blowing out guys until you get to the playoffs. And in East Forsyth's case in particular, it felt like once they ran into a battle-tested team like a Huff or a Weddington or Independence or whoever, as soon as they got punched in the face, it was like they didn't know how to react because they hadn't been punched in the face all year. They were the ones doing the punching. With this group this year, it feels like 2018, 2019 when East went back-to-back state championships in 4A, where they got better as the year went on. They got tested throughout the year. There was an East Forsyth Reagan game I remember specifically somewhere in there where I think Reagan's only beat East like twice or something like in their history. One of those times was during that stretch where I think Reagan came to East and beat them in 2019, and they learned from it. Like you could see them getting incrementally better from week to week. And I think by doing this, because again, you're talking about Grimsley having to play West Forsyth and then East Forsyth, East playing Northern Guilford and then Grimsley, like both on the road to start off the season. Then they have Ragsdale right after that before they're finally at home and take on Mooresville, who's a top 20 ranked team. So if they can get through this non-conference slate, same for Grimsley. If Grimsley makes it through their non-conference slate, they're going undefeated. Like I don't think there's a team in their conference, maybe Dudley, but Dudley might be down with losing Crawford to Northeast Guilford and everything else. Dudley's the only team I see over there that could maybe give Grimsley a run. But once they get to conference, it's wide open. Same for East, really, although I have seen Reagan and West Forsyth rated higher than East on some polls due to that line you talked about at Reagan and Jacob Smith returning early where I didn't even think he was going to play this year. I thought they had written him out for the whole year, but apparently he's out there and he's playing. So Reagan, West, there's a lot of good teams here in the state, like right here in Guilford and Forsyth County, to keep an eye on going forward. So that's your 3 from Mark. Mark, I'm going to get you out of here. What game are you going to this week? You said
in Clemens,
Grimsley and West.
Grimsley, so.
Okay, so you'll be at Grimsley and West Forsyth. So check out Mark there. You can find his work on the Winston-Salem Journal's website and in print, and you can actually follow him on X for the latest in prep sports in the Triad at Marc Pruitt. So we're going to get Mark out of here. We will see you later. Mark, are you coming to Clemens tonight?
I've been told that yes.
So I guess Gabby's controlling if we're going to be making appearances out there or not. So I will see you in a couple hours out at Mossy's Eats, Ales, and Spirits for Titans Talk.
All right. See you.
All right. There he goes. That's Marc Pruitt. And we'll switch that up and we'll bring in my good friend Donal Ware from Box2Row. Just saw you Monday. Just edited that beautiful face on the video we just did for the new North Carolina A&T coaches show that's now going to be exclusive to Facebook Watch and the YouTube channel from North Carolina A&T Athletics. What's going on, Donal? How you doing, man?
Desmond, I'm great. And I got to say this, man, congratulations on all your successes. I just had a chance to watch you and Marc talk high school football, man. I learned a lot just in that little bit of segment being backstage. So congratulations to you.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. And thank you. Thank, Brian over at A&T, everybody that we work with over there that have helped build Tobacco Road over the past 4 or 5 years. I was just thinking about it with my wife the other day. I've been with them now as a partner since 2021, like on the back end of COVID is when the relationship started with Tobacco Road and A&T, entering our fifth season actually with North Carolina A&T, and you will be going with Al Swan and Billy Covington to Nashville to do A&T versus Tennessee State. We'll have that on Tobacco Road Sports Radio here, 4 o'clock pregame Saturday, 4:30 kickoff. I'm about to run to A&T as soon as I'm done with you to drop off the Comrex unit that I've been working on for them. So I'm taking that back to Brian here in about 15 minutes. So you guys are leaving Thursday, right?
Yeah, we're leaving Thursday. Get on up there, man. Enjoy a whole day. Enjoy a whole day in Nashville. Looking forward to it.
Get some Nashville hot chicken and enjoy that. Before we get into the preview for A&T, though, I want to say congratulations, and I wanted to ask you about Box2Row. Box2Row actually airs on Tobacco Road on Saturday mornings here in the Triad and on WWBG 1470 AM at 10 a.m. every Saturday. So you can actually catch this. You are celebrating a 20-year anniversary of Box2Row covering HBCU athletics. Can you talk a little bit about how this started? Like, what made you decide to cover HBCU athletics specifically? And what was the landscape 20 years ago when you were first trying to put this together?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, both of my parents are HBCU grads. I'm a Morgan State grad myself. So, just being a big sports talk radio fan, I didn't hear a lot about HBCUs and about HBCU sports on national radio. And I came up in the DMV area, the Washington area, where Tony Kornheiser had just started his national show. You had Jim Rome, etc. So I wanted to do sports talk radio. Big fan, and we just decided to start it in 2005, and really place an emphasis on HBCU sports. Of course, we've diversified and done some other things, but it was important to me that HBCU sports be more on a national level, particularly radio-wise. And so that's in essence why we started it. And 20 years later, we're here and keeping things going.
Donal Ware joining us here on the Desmond Johnson Show. You can follow him at dware1 over on X. You've had some heavy hitters on your show over the past 20 years. I didn't realize when we first started airing it, and then I started looking through, you'd send over the episodes and I'd see your previews. I'm like, oh, he's got like Taraji P. Henson on here. He's interviewed, Snoop Dogg. He's got all these like huge celebrities. How hard was it in the very beginning to start getting that level of celebrity or athlete to your show? And what was the aha moment like when you got to was there a certain situation or interview where you're like, the thing I've had rattling around in my head about what I want to do, this can actually work. I can live off of this. I can actually build this into a brand. Was there a particular time or a moment where you kind of had that aha moment with Box2Row?
Yeah, it was always, to be honest with you, Desmond, really, sort of a struggle, really. But to your point, like one of the first big guests we had was, Michael Strahan in the beginning of 2006, when the Giants were, as a matter of fact, the Giants were at home. They weren't in the playoffs. So during that playoff time, we had him on. He's one of the first really big guests. And then I'd say the first like mega guest was Serena Williams back in 2007. Actually,
Hmm.
during the Super Bowl, I remember being in Miami doing that interview Super Bowl week of 2007 in Miami. So that was like the really first like real big time guest. But yeah, we've had quite a few, and but it's all and as you know, you're built, as you build your brand, you know how it is, man. It's all about the advertising, the sponsorship. That's always going to be a challenge when you're doing something like what we're doing. But we continue on, and I don't know if it was an aha moment, but I knew that this had to go. Like if I'm going to do something, I got to keep it going, man. So I knew I had to, we had to keep it going, and we have been doing so for 20 years now.
Yeah, that's kind of the boat I'm in too with Tobacco Road, where but people ask me all the time, like, what's your end game or what do you think this leads to? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the end game is. I mean, we're just kind of holding on for the ride at this point, but it's beautiful to see the
Right.
growth.
Right.
It's like we don't know how big it's going to be. We have no idea, but we just kind of go into it each year, knowing what we want to do. And it's crazy to me how you were ahead of the game because you were doing this like 20 years ago, and it's still in the game, and the game is shifted underneath you, but it's shifted more towards what you're doing as opposed to what was happening back then. The game kind of came to you. Where I spoke to Joe Ovies at the NSMA summit over the summer. We did a panel together, and we were talking before we went up on stage, and we were discussing how traditional media, it's still around and we still use it, to get the stuff out for our stuff. But it's begun to come back to like us, the content creators, to build content for them. And you don't have to look any further than ESPN and what they're doing now, as opposed to hiring talent. They're licensing content. They're going and finding the Pat McAfee's or the Rich Eisen show or whoever, and just licensing that content to play it on ESPN, and they get to keep their brand. They get to keep the ownership of their stuff. And you're seeing people like Stephen A. Smith start to do that too, where he's branching out to the point where eventually he won't need ESPN to do what he wants to do with the Stephen A. Smith brand. You were doing that 20 years ago with Box2Row, and you're still doing it today, where you've able to build it out to more than just the show. You report on HBCU stuff. You have a poll each week that everyone follows. You interview the athletes. Do you feel like there's still a hole in HBCU coverage, or do you feel like it's gotten better over the past like decade or so?
Yeah, it's a great question. No, I think it's gotten better because you have other entities like ours. I mean, of course, from a radio standpoint, nobody's doing what we're doing. But in terms of other HBCU entities or other entities that cover HBCU sports, so you got a plethora of those entities, and which is great. But then the other thing, Desmond, all the other everybody's stepping up. Like ESPN had always been doing. You look at the MEAC Swag Challenge. ESPN has been doing some stuff HBCU wise for a number of years, going back to 20 years ago. This was, I believe, the 20th MEAC Swag Challenge that just took place last week between Southern and North Carolina Central, and so they've stepped up a little bit. But everybody's sort of, I think, on the HBCU train. If you, that's a big deal, right? But I think more so, it's something that some of the bigger entities feel like they can make some money off of. And so, if you can make money off of it, then that's sort of where you'll go. But it's really a good thing to see that HBCU sports has really been elevated, and we're talking about HBCU sports a lot of time in the so-called mainstream.
So yeah, so you got Box2Row, and again, you can hear new episodes of that on Tobacco Road Sports Radio at 10 o'clock every Saturday morning, either online at tobaccoroadsportsradio.com or over the airwaves terrestrial radio in the Triad WWBG 1470 AM as part of our Saturday morning block at 10 a.m. Real quick before I get you out of here and get everybody back to their cubicles from their lunch breaks, A&T Tennessee State 2025 season opener on the road. A new era begins. Sean Gibbs back home with the Aggies. Your thoughts? We just did the coach's show taping and the live stream of their press conference Monday, so you got a chance to sit down with Coach Gibbs. You knew him before; he was here already as a running backs coach during really the peak of A&T football. Your initial thoughts of Gibbs taking over the program and the vibes you're catching from being around them on Monday and their expectations for Saturday.
Yeah, Coach Gibbs is, you said, the heyday, but he even goes back to the days of Bill Hayes, when Bill Hayes was the coach at A&T. So, um, he's I feel good happened at A&T this year. It's been a tough couple of years, really, the last couple of years, but there's still some talent here. That's the thing about, like, there's still some talent here, and there's an opportunity to go on a strong note on Saturday against Tennessee State. Tennessee State's got a solid program, but Tennessee State was really good last year. Eddie George, Bowling Green, so, it's a new season there as well. So, I feel like I feel like I feel like in the long run, this is going to be really, really good for A&T. And I think it can be set, Desmond, on Saturday against Tennessee State. Good matchup, great coaching staffs on both sides. So really looking forward to the game on Saturday.
So again, we've got A&T opening up the 2025 college football season versus Tennessee State. 4:00 pregame show with Donal Ware and Al Swan. 4:30 kickoff with both of them and Billy Covington. I'll be on as well in the studio doing pregame scoreboard and halftime scoreboard updates for you guys for top 25 as college football kicks off around the country. There's a lot of games Saturday that we're going to have a lot of eyeballs on, and we'll keep you up to date with those there as A&T starts the Sean Gibbs era. I know there's a lot of A&T Aggies that are very, very much looking forward to seeing this after the past couple of years of it's been a roller coaster at A&T with football in particular coming out back into COVID. So looking forward to Saturday. I'm going to get Donal out of here. We are out of time. We will be back Saturday morning. We'll continue our NFL previews with Ben Troop, former NFL tight end Ben Troop, Ryan Smith. They're both the host of Winning the Division over on our Keep Pounding podcast network. And my man Rod Funderburk will be in the house. We'll be previewing some more NFL divisions. And who knows, we'll have some stuff up our sleeves as a college football kickoff right as we go off the airways on Saturday. We'll get you ready for the big games there. So we're going to get out of here, and we will see you guys Saturday morning at 11 a.m.